and I will talk in Dutch, my mother tongue. Kijk, collega's, voorzitter.
Colleagues, Chair, when these resolutions were approved, we all know that at the moment within the Parliament, within the committee and in the plenary, there's a majority for this, people from 6 different groups, and we need 2/3 of the votes. So it's not a game, it's an important political signet, and we're looking at 2 different issues. Soya MON 87751, and then that's an approval, and then a renewal of an approval for maize 1507 NK603. Now, I just want to explain what the reasons are and the difficulties that we have. I'm actually not going to summarize them, but I have a number of questions on MON 87751. Commission, can you explain how you can justify the fact that you are opting for and approving for the approval of this, but when you look at the evaluation, allergenic reactions have been described. There are also comments made by EFSA on the lack of safety tests, and then also the EFSA panel says that there are some doubts about the potential of these as adjuvants. And then there are studies that show that further investigation is needed. And so could you explain to us how you, in the discussions that you've had with EFSA, have come to this decision? And then the second one is on maize 1507 NK603. Now we know that it is tolerant to glyphosate and glufosinate, and that it leads to insecticide toxins. And there's been a discussion within the Commission. Glyphosate is banned, and we know that these plants can have toxic effects. And it's also said that there are a reference to 120 publications, but apparently only 1 study is found to be relevant. And EFSA recognizes that this approach is a very dubious and can be improved. And EFSA also says that the 2 DNA sequences are identical to the original one. But EFSA doesn't give any proof of that, but really just bases this on the survey. So basically, EFSA in its advice is referring only on the information that has been put in the request. Now, Commission, do you think that is normal? Do you have confidence in this approach? And can you give some comments on the comments that I've just made and the reservations that we have? Those are the arguments we would like to put forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bart, for being so comprehensive and short. And I don't see Guillaume Balas. Yes, Eleonora of Evi for EFDD. Please, floor is yours.
Thank you, President. I would like to intervene to support what Mr. Stas has just said as co-author of this objection, and to reiterate some of the concepts that are most close to my heart in this objection. This is something that we keep putting forward because we do believe that there are various criticisms to be made in the authorization for marketing of this product. As regards soya in particular, our objection is crystal clear. Scientific doubt is still present as regards the validity and the solidity of the scientific assessments. Soya, in particular, in the absence of proteins that were not evaluated in combination, and that's a major criticism when evaluating the safety of the GMO. There's a high degree of potential toxin there because it hasn't been analysed in combination. Member States have also been critical. This procedure for authorising the GMO is not democratic because it cuts this Parliament right out of the loop. The voice of this Parliament must be heard once and for all.
Thank you so much. I see that we have another shadow or co-rapporteur, sorry, and it is Lynn Boylan. Lynn, do you want to intervene? No. Very well then. So I have Mr. Fjellner on my list.
Thank you very much, and I'll try to be pretty brief. We've been through this before, and hopefully this is the last time. The European Food Safety Agency gave their green light to this almost a year ago, and EFSA stated that these plants are as safe as their conventional counterparts with respect to health and environment. That's the fact, and that's the advice, scientific advice we have at hand. I believe that we should trust our scientific advice, which the Commission has done, and therefore nobody can actually seriously claim that the Commission either has overstepped their mandate because they've done exactly what's laid out in the regulation, and they've listened to the scientific advice that we ordered them to listen to. And I must say honestly that so far, during this term, I think we've dealt with 30 of these objections to GM crops. Every single time, the objectors have disregarded the competent scientific advice that we've been given. And I wouldn't like to ask the Commission, I'd rather ask the objectors that if they don't believe that we should listen to the scientific advice of EFSA, then is there really a point of keeping EFSA in the future at all, given that they don't care about their work? And maybe they will, as they tend to do, say that even though we have a scientific consensus on GM, they will find their own scientific advice. But I would just urge you to consider one thing. It will be hard to find the serious scientists that will support your ideological agenda. Even though I'm not running for another term, I hope that those that are will stop with these objections and start taking EFSA and the experts seriously. And if we do that, we might actually start doing serious things when it comes to GM instead of theater.
Yes, thank you. I think positions are very clear, apparent before the European elections. Well, I don't have anyone else on my list, and we can jump directly to the votes. No? Sorry, Commission. Yeah, Commission, for sure, Commission. I've forgotten for the Commission, you know. We are in the, you know, we are nearly in a campaign. Who cares for the Commission? No, of course, floor is yours, and I am sure that you will tell us a lot of new things.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman and the honourable members, and thank you for not ignoring me, although I'm much shorter than my head of unit, Chantal Prucci, that you are normally used to seeing in this bench. So first of all, I would just like to repeat basically what was already said by the honourable member Fjellner, that these two applications, Commission has followed all the procedural steps, as we always do. When we drafted these authorizations, EFSA performed a very comprehensive risk assessment on the GM soybean without identifying any data gaps. And therefore, EFSA concluded positively on its safety to humans, animals, and the environment. Honourable Member Stas raised a question about the allergenicity of soybean. As you know, soybeans are allergenic, common allergens in food, and therefore EFSA carefully assessed the potential changes in the GM soybean endogenous allergenicity linked to this GM event in accordance with the GM legislation, implementing regulation, and EFSA's guidelines. And based on the submitted mandatory studies, 2 additional studies also provided by the applicant, and the current scientific knowledge, EFSA still concluded that there is no evidence of change in overall allergenicity of the GM soybean compared to its conventional counterparts. So I hope this replies to the question of honourable member Stas. Also for the renewal of the TMAs, which already has been on the market for more than 10 years, because it was declared safe and authorized, as this concerns a renewal, EFSA assessed all new scientific information that there is related to these TMAs, and it did not identify any new information that would change its original positive evaluation. Now, I would like to just remind that member states, they also assess these GM soybean and GM maize, and EFSA takes into account the comments of member states' risk assessment in their own risk assessment phase, and they ask further information from the applicant when needed. So EFSA has also addressed all the comments coming from these risk assessment bodies in these opinions, as well as explain them to the member states in the standing committee. We must also remember that also the public has the opportunity to provide comments to these EFSA's opinions. Scientific comments were received only for the GM soybean, and EFSA considered this without changing its previous positive conclusions. I just wanted to go back to the question of Honourable Member Stas on the literature research carried out. In this, the GMO panel for the GM maize, the GMO panel assessed the systematic literature search that was carried out by the applicant, and it acknowledged that no publication raising a safety concerns for human and animal health and the environment, which should change the original risk assessment conclusions on this maize, had been identified. So there, in these renewals, we already have experience of a real use on the market. So they are even, you can say they are even safer authorizations than the new authorizations. Now, finally, since I know that you are pressed with time, and although the Commission always has a lot to say, I just would like to say that why are we continuing authorizing these is that GM feed products, they are imported to the EU because they are safe and there's a market for such products. Finally, I would just like to underline that the Commission has no reason to withdraw these draft decisions, which are based on positive and comprehensive scientific opinions by EFSA, and that these both draft decisions followed all the steps established in the GMO legislation, and therefore the Commission has not exceeded its implementing powers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The discussion is finished now, and we can now go for the item 7 on the agenda, which is electronic vote. And we'll start immediately with vote on report of Julie Girling on the proposal for regulation of the European Parliament and Council on persistent organic pollutants, outcome of negotiations.
I actually have my card, but it doesn't vote. I've tried 5 machines, so you know. No.
Okay.
Sorry? Just so you know.
If you wish, then you can show by. Please, colleagues, we have to be very tolerant. Well, yeah, I see that your card doesn't work. Maybe you have to educate your card a bit, and we will take your vote into account when you show by hands. And I open the vote now on Girling's report. And vote is closed. So it is adopted. 34 for and up 4 abstentions, 4 minus. So congratulations to the rapporteur. Next is votes about objection pursuant to Rule 106, authorizing the placing on the market of products consisting of or produced from genetically modified soybean. And I open the vote. The vote is now closed, and it is adopted. Next, objection on renewing the authorization for the placing of genetically modified maize on the market. Vote is open. And vote is closed. And that is adopted. Then we have another objection, which is against authorization for uses of bis-diethylhexylphthalate, DEHP, under Regulation 1907/2006. Vote is open. And closed. And that is clearly adopted. Thank you. And next and last is the same case. It is, of course, again authorization of bis-diethylhexylphthalate. Vote is open. And vote is closed. And that is adopted. So, the end of